focuses so much on their training, but they're not focusing on the things that they're eating. The researchers are the smartest people we know. They're the ones in there coming up with these ideas and putting them to test. But there's people like me that have to practically apply it to the athletes. And there's a disconnect between what we know in a lab and what's actually going to happen in reality out in the field. Because now we're dealing with humans, and we're dealing with their habits, and how are they going to adhere to it, and how are we going to make it possibly happen within their lifestyle? Some athletes travel all the time. Some people never cook for themselves in their lives. So how can we take this and make it as easy as possible and bring it to the athletes? It's not just about how fast can you run and how much can you lift. It's about how long are we going to be able to do this. And to me, and from what I've seen and what I'd love to research, is can we be lowering the carbohydrate levels and keeping the fat levels where they're at, and then seeing how their performance is, but then also where their hormone levels at, and where's their mood at, how's their cognitive function? Because one of the big things going on right now in sports nutrition, or at least in my mind, is nootropics and the neurological function. You need to think fast. How are you going to be better than the person next to you that's just as good as you, maybe neurologically?
So most important for input?
Eating enough calories. I think a lot of athletes are not eating enough calories, especially female athletes. That's a big focus. And tons of protein. Getting in enough protein, and we're seeing, I did a study last year to show strength gains and muscle gains by eating more protein through college athletes. And some other sports that aren't constantly going through energy systems and going through output, I feel that they're not eating enough fat. And as we know, women have a lot of problems with the female athlete triad and their hormonal.
So wait a minute. Athletic women are not eating enough fat, and you're saying there's too much carbs. Can you talk to me more about that?
Sure.
And how you come to this?
One of the traditional protocols is when women have to cut weight, say they're a weight class athlete, they'll cut their fats down. And that's how they're lowering their calories. That's the traditional way of losing weight as an athlete. We want to keep our carbohydrates really high, and we're going to cut our fats down to extremely low levels. And this could be with performance athletes or with bodybuilders. You see that with the bikini athletes or figure athletes. And men do it as well. And so they're getting their fat levels so low that their hormones are shutting down. I also have yet to have an athlete complain about it. You know, you hear all these negative things, and I worry. I'm like, how are you feeling? How is your lifting? What are your weights at? Do you feel less energy? And sometimes I have to gauge, because athletes are used to putting themselves through pain, so they won't complain. And everyone's like, I feel great. I love it. I feel great. I'm not as hungry. I feel good. I'm performing well. So I'm happy right now with where everything's at with them.
So for you as an athlete, how do you feel about the ketogenic diet?
I love it. I never thought I would love ketogenic dieting. It completely was against.
So you do it yourself?
I do, yes.
Okay.
The reason I started is because I work with contact sport athletes like football players, and I wanted to be able to prescribe, if I needed to prescribe a ketogenic diet post-concussion, say, how do I do it? I love ketogenic dieting. I never thought I would. I was a low-fat person my entire life, and I decided that if I was going to have to prescribe a ketogenic diet to an athlete or to somebody post-concussion, I would have to know what it entitled to actually do it. You know, so I put myself into a ketogenic diet, and it was life-changing for me on many, many levels. I had really bad stomach pains for a long time. I had every test under the sun. Nobody knew what it was. And when I removed grains, and I even did allergy testing, and nothing came up. But when I took the grains out for ketogenic, all those pains went away. I mean, I remember calling my mom, like,
how fast did that happen for you?
Immediately. I mean, because my pains were often, I would end up in the ER. We didn't know what it was. We thought appendix, but nothing came back, nothing. And all this time, you know, I'm now pretty sure it's grains. And I was also eating way too much fiber. You know, we hear a lot about prebiotics, and I was eating way too much fiber. So it was life-changing in that sense, but I also have ADD. And my focus immediately changed. I would say within the month. I mean, I was so much more productive, and I was really a naysayer. I never would have, if I didn't do it myself, I wouldn't have believed it, 100%. There was an adaptation stage, you know, absolutely as an athlete. I would get a little bit dizzy when I was weightlifting. After about 2 weeks to a month, it went away, and then as the months went on, it's been about 10 months now, I think.
Okay.
As the months went on, I just felt better and better and better.
So can you share with us exactly what you do, how you do it? I saw a big bag of walnuts this morning, and you were talking to me a little bit about the different ways, the cravings that you've let go of. So can you give us an overview?
Sure. I wake up in the morning and I do avocado. So avocado is one of my biggest sources of fiber for me, and I know some people have trouble getting in fiber in a ketogenic diet, so I love my avocados. I do an avocado shake with protein and raw cacao and flaxseed, and then I go lift, and I'm good for hours, which is another huge thing. I was a slave to my food, and a lot of athletes are slaves to food, always being hungry, always having to buy food, prep food, it takes a lot of time. And going ketogenic, that completely went away. So that shake lasts me a very long time. And then I'll lift and I come home and eat farm fresh eggs. I can take a lot of my money that was going to eating so much volume of food and focus on my quality of food that I'm getting, which is another great thing. I do a lot of salmon, wild salmon. I eat tons of nuts, walnuts, and I used to be a peanut butter addict. I mean, a peanut butter addict, I used to eat a jar of peanut butter a day. I was known.
How much peanut butter?
A jar of peanut butter a day.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, there were times where I tried to detox off of it and I couldn't. I really couldn't. I would think about it all the time. But when I went ketogenic, it just stopped. I mean, I actually have a jar that I've had for months. People used to say to me, how long can peanut butter stay good for? I'm like, I don't know, because I just eat it in a day. Do you have to refrigerate it? I don't know.
Wow.
And now I actually have a jar that I think is probably rancid. It's amazing because I never would have thought that I could get off of peanut butter. And my palate in general has changed. I just don't, sugar is not appealing to me anymore.
Did you experience the keto flu? How do you help your athletes sort of go through the adaptation and
I definitely did. I wouldn't say so much a flu. Because we're training so much, you do feel it in your training. I mean, that's undeniable. So I had to actually scale my training down, and my coach knew that. And when athletes go through it, their coaches know. So you have to have different expectations of what's going to happen for this couple weeks. Keeping electrolytes really high, making sure your hydration is high.
Yes.
Doing MCT oil to produce ketones. So drinking MCT oil in coffee or doing MCT powder in shakes to help produce ketones to make that process to happen faster. If people can intermittent fast, we try to do that as well. So anything to help produce those ketones faster. And then I had to take naps, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I would work out and I felt like my life was drained from me. So I would just take a nap and then wake up and go again. But I was waking up earlier, I was so productive in the morning, and then I would train and then I would take my nap. Now it's just, I don't even need to take naps, so.
Wow, and it's been 10 months.
Yeah, I mean, if I eat carbohydrates now, I'll have to sleep immediately. It's like a switch.
Wow,
Yeah.
That's amazing. So with your athletes, you talked about ADHD and what you've suffered from and how the ketogenic diet has helped you so much. With your athletes and the concussions, can you speak about that a little bit?
Sure. So research is still on the forefront with concussions and athletes, but one of the things that we do know is that there is a increased need for glucose after you have a concussion. And if we can provide an alternate fuel for the brain, such as ketones, we can prevent a lot of the inflammation, or we think that we can prevent a lot of the inflammation that occurs post-concussion. We need to start educating about concussions and about how ketogenic dieting can help at a very young age. I mean, if not before high school. And it's not just football players. Cheerleaders get a lot of concussions as well.
Oh, really?
Soccer players, MMA players. Now that's becoming a really big sport from a young age. So, we know that kids are more prone to concussions than adults. If I wanted to be able to apply it to my athletes, I had to understand it.
Got it.
Mentally and physically. Because for an athlete, it's about can they get it done. So I can tell them to do something, but if I don't tell them how to get it done, it's not going to happen. I have to make it as easy as possible, but I also have to know what it feels like, what the stress feels like. What does it feel like to not know what I'm going to eat right now, and then I have to go work out, or I have to come home and cook, or what am I going to buy in the supermarket? And I needed to put myself in their shoes, and I just decided to do it for that reason. It's about what we're going to do today, but it's longevity of your career as an athlete, and that means that you need to treat your body for a long time. And so collagen is something that can strengthen your bones and strengthen your soft tissue. That's your ligaments and your tendons. And if anybody's following sports this year, we've seen so many injuries between the NFL and the NBA already. And a lot of them are related to tears, tendon tears, ligament tears, bone breaking. And these are things that I really do believe if athletes are eating better, we could be preventing some of these injuries.
It's really tough in this country, and it's like a change of mindset.
Absolutely. I mean, American diet does not use all of the great things. We don't use the organ meats. We don't use bone marrow. We don't eat the skin. We want to stay away from all of the things that have the vitamins and the minerals and the nutrients in it. And that's another great thing on ketogenic diet is because you can eat those things. When you're on a low-fat diet, you stay away from the nutrient-dense foods. Isn't that crazy?
It's so crazy.
So yeah, I think it's great to be able to supplement with it. And collagen depletes as we get older as well. So we need to supplement with it at that point.